afternoon, good evening. This is Jen Bonet with the Creative Coast. It's really great to see everyone, and we are here for Entrepreneurs Night. This is October 2020. Such a strange time it's been. And today we're meeting with Jason and Lindy from East Taylor Creative. And for those of you that don't know, Entrepreneurs Night is our way to kind of interact with successful entrepreneurs that are in that creative technology space that the Creative Coast focuses on. And we want to hear their story of how they got started, where they're at today, how things are going. And we're documenting their story because as Savannah grows into an amazing creative technology town in the future, we want to go back to who was here first, who did it, who got us here, what companies had success and led us on this path to where we're headed to. I'm really optimistic about where we're headed right now, and I'm really thrilled to be with Lindy and Jason, who were early tenants of the Creative Coast co-working space, Bull Street Labs, and dealt with a lot of our issues back in the old space prior to our move to our glamorous new place. Jason, Lindy, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. Let's start with a little bit of both of your backgrounds. So,
okay.
What'd you major in? What were your first jobs, or how? And then then we'll get into East Taylor and how you launched that.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll start. I'm Lindy Weimer. I originally grew up mostly in Buffalo, New York, and I start there because really I have always been creative. I've always been into making things, solving problems. Early on in my elementary school days, art class was my favorite class. And that is really what led me to look into studying it. I actually thought I wanted to be an art teacher and went to college first in Boston for art education. And I quickly realized that necessarily wasn't the way I wanted to spend my work days and make a career of that. And I made this shift into product design. And that is what brought me down to Savannah. So SCAD ended up being the only school in the country that I could study industrial design and play soccer. So after being in Boston, that made me look down here in Savannah, and I convinced my parents Thanksgiving to get in the car, drive down here, and check the school out and meet with the soccer coach. And about a week later, I was transferring out of the current school I was in. I was making plans to pack up and move home. I drove my parents a little crazy during that time, but I really appreciate that they supported me, because making that move to Savannah and SCAD really changed everything for me. Being in the industrial design department, learning their human-centered design process, that's kind of where my love for art and making things with kind of the logical side of my brain, they all kind of combined perfectly. I fell in love with the design process. I picked up the interaction design minor. It was just starting at SCAD when I was there, and that was another decision. It added another quarter of school on for me, so another decision I had to make with my parents, but another one that really led me to the work that I'm doing today in the digital world especially. So I had a wonderful experience at SCAD, put a lot of hours in creating some crazy products and making them in the wood shop and presenting in class while playing soccer, and really loving that part of my college life as well. So that's really where I kind of transitioned into the design world and started my career after SCAD in Minneapolis at Target headquarters. So I ended up kind of pursuing the product side, physical product side of design. And I joined the trend team there, where I got to do trend forecasting for the home design team. So I was shopping stores And it's kind of crazy that that is an actual job, but I was in, Crate and Barrel and West Elm, keeping tabs on what they were doing, determining what the trends and what the color palettes and patterns were for the home design teams. So it was really cool to kind of be in a position where I worked with, designers who were designing luggage, some were doing bedding, some were doing bathroom products. To see how that kind of all combined, and really to see how Target pays attention to their users, especially in their shopping experience. So that played well into kind of my design process, human-centered design focused mind. However, Minneapolis winters, not a fan of them. Even though I grew up in Buffalo, Minneapolis is a lot colder. It's a lovely place in the spring and summer. But I knew it was time for me to move on. And that's really when I transitioned into the digital world, and I moved to New York City and worked for Razorfish. They've changed names since, but it was going from Target being a very large corporate, 10,000 plus people company, to more of an agency vibe, about 500 people in the New York office. And that's where I got to start working on websites and digital products. So learning what the design process means there. That's also when Agile and Scrum methodology came out. So I was put in a war room on a project and got to live out that. And so really all of those things kind of led me back down to Savannah. I left New York during the recession around 2008, 2009-ish. And ended up coming down to Savannah, moving back and working for some smaller agencies here, doing user experience, UX centered work. And then that's really when I started to transition to start East Taylor. So that's kind of my roundabout, moving all around story and background. So I'll pass it over to Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. So my name is Jason Weimer, and I am Lindy's husband and also business partner. And my story is a lot more streamlined and narrow whenever it comes to the design world. A lot of the reason that is because whenever I was growing up, I had a love for science, and I went down that path and actually ended up with a degree in biology. While working to earn that, I worked my way through college, excuse me, in sales and management for Verizon Wireless for many years. And excuse me, whenever the way I ended up transitioning into the design world, as we'll probably talk about a little bit more, is because of a lot of Lindy's story, and basically all of Lindy's story, because she's the one that really introduced me to a lot of the possibilities in the design and technology world that I hadn't really been exposed to in my childhood. So yeah, I think that's just kind of a roundabout way. I have a biology degree that serves me in a lot of different ways that I never expected it would. And I'm kind of put myself through the design and technology school of hard knocks. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say really for the last 6, almost 7 years now, Jason, I mean, really, he's been in the design and technology world now. It's hard to believe it's gone that fast. But it was really interesting how he was drawn to a user experience, human-centered design process because of his background in science and how he could relate it to, a scientific process. So really, I guess this kind of transitions into the start of East Taylor. So for me, first kind of balling up all the different experiences that I had, really it led me to a point where I wanted to use the tools that I had, the design process that I had really kind of honed in and started to make my own. I wanted to use it more purposefully and to really be able to offer that type of work to businesses, companies, and people who normally can't afford someone like Razorfish or even some of the local larger, more established agencies in this region or this state. So really what I wanted to do was see what I could do on my own, partially contracting as a UX designer, but also building kind of our own clientele and project and process as well. So as I kind of went off on my own and did that, that was the winter of 2014. I started to get busier and busier. Jason's path where he was not really offering him the right next step without us having to move and leave Savannah. That was something that we necessarily did not want to do. So as I got busier and busier, he started to help me out here and there, first taking care of, more business related things, crunching numbers, doing those things that most designers don't care for doing. And so as I got busier, he just kept kind of learning as he would listen to me on meetings or ask how he could help with some of my deliverables. And he also, throughout all of that, really utilized online platforms. So to learn design programs, he was on
Skillshare.
Yeah, Skillshare a lot.
Spent a lot of hours in there for a while.
Yeah. So like you said, he's very much self-taught and, kind of learned as he went, but he brings a great perspective, especially from a sales and marketing side, which helped me a lot because I'm like, I'll do all the work behind the scenes. I know it's great work. I know I have a lot to offer people, but like selling and marketing, no thanks. So he also stepped in with that. That helped a lot to really help us transition East Taylor from being mostly a contract UX-based company to we have our own design process. We build websites and apps and create brands and logos and identities and products for all sorts of companies now. And really, it's all been built on our design process. So with East Taylor, we always say it's all about purpose and people. And that's really what led me to start it, and what got Jason on board is, we really felt we could empower and impact people, whether they were, running a nonprofit or they had a product or app idea. We felt like we could really step in and take what we had learned from our experiences, create something new, make it a little more accessible. And that's kind of how East Taylor started, I guess.
Awesome. I love it. Purpose and people. I made a note of that. I wrote that down. I also love your circuitous route through physical product design.
Yeah.
I find the trend analysis really interesting. It's actually what my sister does in food. So it's amazing to me how they're predicting what we're going to want to eat next year.
It's fascinating.
Right, or what color is going to be hot next year, right?
Exactly.
There's a science to it, right?
Yep.
What's going to be the tail?
Yeah, and then, Jason's background, I spent some time at New Run, which was an agency in Atlanta that was acquired by Razorfish.
Yep.
So we got a little tie in there.
Yep.
And when I first got there, they were like, oh, you have to learn design thinking. Read this book.
Yep.
I read the book and I went back, well, this is the same thing as lean startup. It's the same thing as scientific methodology. It's just different lingo.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, really. So totally seeing eye to eye there.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm always curious when there's two founders or
there's one founder.
Yeah. I guess
Lindy's the founder for sure.
Right. Or somebody joins the company shortly thereafter and plays a lead role. Like, how did you decide what each other's roles were and make sure that you're communicating effectively and not duplicating effort and all those other things, because it's often a challenging time for an entrepreneur when they bring on that co-founder or co-founders to figure out, okay, how do we lay out the roles such that we're all marching to the same tune but running as hard as possible.
Yeah. Do you want to, or me? I will say, we are constantly learning on how to do this well. I
Mhm.
think in the beginning, it happened more naturally because it was just very clear the task that made sense for me to do versus Jason.
Mhm.
And as we've grown, it's gotten more complicated
Mhm.
where there's times it's like, okay, you are, the owner and taking responsibility for these projects, or, maybe it's new business inquiries, something like that. And then, there always seems to be overlap, and it's like, well, it makes sense for you to answer this email, so maybe you should just do that. So I think it's easy when there's only two people for things to really
Mhm.
overlap and clear boundaries not to be set. So I will say that's something that we continually are working on and trying to figure out how to use different tools and systems. Like we use Asana for project management. How can that kind of take that away? And, we assign a task so it's clear who's taking care of it and when. There's been times where we've regularly used like a contract PM. That's been helpful to help divvy things out for us, or to help kind of make sure, if someone's missing something, there's a third person with eyes on it. And I feel like that's kind of worked for us because we do grow as a team with contractors depending on the project. And so typically one of us is the project kind of owner and leader and is taking care of that team and that client. And then kind of those overarching tasks, like I mentioned, one person will kind of take ownership and responsibility, and we try not to cross the lines too much. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I try to do, especially early on, that I would try to do is take ownership of things that I knew she didn't like to do, even if, especially in the beginning, even if I didn't like to do them, just because there's obviously like an energy aspect to your work, and if you're not doing things that you enjoy, it can be really draining. And so I think that was part of my thinking early on. But I think also too, like Lindy mentioned, as we've grown our team and we've started to work even more regularly with contractors, we don't have any true full W-2 employees, but we pay a significant amount, or we work with a significant amount of contractors. I think finding people that, like, what I try to do is find people that like to do the things that we just generally don't like to do. So I think it's,
and are experts in
yeah,
that.
well, of course, yeah, that's not the only caveat, yeah, but just try. I think more so just looking for people that feel like they're the right fit, that have the similar values that we do, and then also are like excited by the work that we're asking them to do, even if it's at a contract level.
Mm-hmm. And that's really allowed us to have, like I said, experts step in those positions when we need them on certain projects. And so far that piece has worked really well for us, and really opened up a lot of opportunities for us to work with local designers and developers, Creative Coast members, even past colleagues of mine or Jason's, and we're now starting to look into connecting with SCAD and some of the schools eventually to bring in some interns. So I feel like that's kind of also worked well for us as we kind of expand and contract depending on our needs with our contract team.
Awesome. So like, just thinking about this, like how many projects do you guys have going on at kind of any given point in time? And then like, so then how many people are you trying to kind of coordinate across those projects?
Well, people, I would say the two of us are, definitely the most immersed. We have two others that we work with regularly, one here in Savannah, one person in Atlanta, kind of the 3 to 4 of us, that's our core team. And the one, depending on availability, usually we're all on, especially the major projects that make sense. Otherwise, I would say our team probably expands by, so if that's 4 of us, probably another 4 to 6, depending on the project and the amount of people we need on it. As far as clients go, Off the top of my head, I actually don't know what the number is. Do you know?
I was
right
well, I was
now?
actually thinking about this a little bit earlier because I figured at some point you're going to ask me how many clients in Savannah or locally that we're working with. So I have put a little bit thought in this. I think, generally we try not to overwhelm ourselves too much. So total number of clients, I would say probably anywhere from 6 to 8 active at a time in varying capacities.
Yeah, so some are.
And then I'm going to wait
ahead.
for the follow-up because I know it's going to come.
Oh, I was going to say some of those clients are, we're going through large redesigns with their brand, their website. So they're, 3 to 4 month projects. Some are smaller where it's, one case we're helping with a new idea to develop a logo, a brand identity, and a pitch deck for a nonprofit. So that's more like a 4-ish, 6-ish week project. And then we do also have clients that we work with on a monthly retainer basis. So when he's talking about, 6 to 8-ish or whatever clients, it is at varying capacities, and some are local, some are Atlanta, throughout Georgia, and then also some are in New York City and farther out, thanks to technology allowing us to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go back to talent because we kind of skipped ahead there. I'd like to, I'm a tool geek. So especially now that we're all remote, you said you use Asana. What other tools do you use to help manage people and processes related to people?
Mainly Asana, Slack, and a time recording tool called EverHour. That's probably not as common.
Yeah, we use those regularly, and then I would say also Google Drive.
Yeah.
We use that all the time. We actually just started using Google Forms to have feedback forms for clients to submit their feedback on different steps of the process, which, sends us an email once they do it. So we try to kind of connect those things. The other thing I would mention with larger projects, development projects, apps and websites, we also use BugHerd for task tracking, and it's really great to get client feedback during QA because they can click on the screen, it takes a screenshot, they enter their comment, and then you can kind of cleanly organize it all on the back end and assign it to someone to take care of. So we found tools like that help automate communication between us and our clients, and then the kind of delegation and assignment to our team members is really helpful. So things don't kind of get stuck in limbo, and then it's a few days before someone tells this other person that this thing needs to happen. So I would say, yeah, those are probably the main tools.
Since Lindy mentioned, I was just going to say, since Lindy mentioned some things that we utilize with clients as well, another software we use is Envision app to help present creative and things like that. We also use Sketch, but it connects with Envision, so we prototype and that kind of stuff and utilize that. So whenever we send deliverables to client in a closer to finalized state, they're able to actually click around, see how their product is going to end up looking, to get it as close to real life as we possibly can.
Very cool. And do you have a preferred tech stack for your websites and or apps?
It depends on the project. Primarily, I would say we use for something that can be templated, we really like Squarespace. If it's a custom build, we rarely do just an out of the box template in WordPress. Generally, it's a custom WordPress build.
Right.
But we do have the capacity to do completely custom jobs as well, if that's what the project requires. And then, the app stacks are, we write in Kotlin or in Swift and that. So, those are pretty straightforward. And Google and,
I would say for web, it's as far as templated things, Squarespace or Shopify, we have some really heavy e-commerce clients that are on Shopify. And then we build in WordPress a lot, custom WordPress sites. And then, custom if that is what the project calls for. that's definitely something, you know, we open ourselves up to being able to produce solutions in a lot of different platforms because we feel our design process can really allow us to do that and help people do that. And that's also why we built our team the way we do, because there's times, you know, we have an iOS developer, an Android developer on a project. Maybe we're also building a website for that client. So then we have, you know, maybe a WordPress developer on it. Other times, you know, maybe it's Jason working on Shopify in the back end. You know, we have a lot of flexibility there to kind of adapt ourselves to the idea and the solution of the client.
Yeah, I would say as a general rule, I think we have like preferred ones that we would we would pick to work in, but I think what ultimately drives the decision is the needs of the project and ultimately the budget of the project. You know, like how much can be invested to build out something custom versus doing something on a templated platform like Squarespace.
Awesome. All right, now let's go back to customers, because we hit on that too a little bit.
Yeah.
So you said, yeah, at any given time you have like 6 to 8 customers. I think that finding customers and getting customer traction is one of the hardest things when you're starting a company. So could you talk a little bit about maybe how you got your first customer, and then like how do customers find you, or how do you find customers today?
Really for us, like I mentioned in our story, we started a lot with contract work, UX contract work, and that kind of led to people asking, well, can you do this too? You know, what about this? And really in the beginning, and even now, recommendations, word of mouth referrals, that is 100% what drives customers to us and the projects that we have. That's probably not always the answer people want to hear, because, you know, there's no just do this, this, and this, and they'll come. In some cases, it's years of relationship building that, you know, maybe someone mentions to them, hey, I have this idea, I want to build an app. And they're like, you should talk to Jason and Lindy. You know, Jen, you've done that with the Creative Coast. We have other communities who, you know, someone just is kind of like, I have this thing, I think I want to make it. And the person doesn't always know if it's a good fit for us, but usually they're like, hey, can you do this? And we'll either say, yep, let's talk about it some more, or no, we can't, maybe point them in someone else's direction. So I think in a lot of ways, you know, I think it's really nurturing and building good relationships where you are locally in the industries that you practice in. You know, I still have connections to college classmates that connect me to opportunities. Or what I love about it too is when someone comes to me and is like, hey, I'm looking for this job, or I'm looking to transition or move, you know, we can put the word out as well when that makes sense. I think besides that, something that we are trying to do more and more of is share what we do. We do it for our clients all the time. We story tell for our clients all the time. It's always hardest to do it for yourself. And that's something that we didn't put the time to or make priority in the beginning. And now, you know, sharing on Instagram is a really good fit for us. I wouldn't necessarily say that brings in customers for us, but I do think it's a great way to show people what we do, what we believe in, and to kind of give them peeks into our process and the work that we've done. Because I think that's the other thing. Now, as we look at proactively going after more business, having work that we are proud of, that's solid, that we can share, I think goes a long way to say, you know what, we want to do more work in this industry. So we know, you know, there's company A, B, and C. Maybe we don't know anyone there, aren't connected to them, but we have this really great project that, you know, we think we could take their company to the next level. So let's show it to them, see what they think. And, you know, maybe that sparks an idea for them. Because I think that's the other way I would say we've gotten business is, you know, work that we've done for clients. Other companies have seen that and even asked them, hey, who did your website? You know, and that's led us to grow our clients as well. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I would say like we did start off doing a lot of contract work for other companies, but the first big project that we landed for like East Taylor, where we had control over everything from end to end, was actually on a lukewarm email. So I won't call it cold because it was and actually this kind of goes back to what Lindy touched a lot on, is that we really believe in nurturing relationships. And, you know, one of the mantras that we live by is do good work and don't be an a-hole. So, you know, I think, you know, I actually had a relationship with an executive assistant for a company when I was at Verizon. And I randomly emailed her and I was like, hey, y'all's, you know, I don't know if, you know, we haven't talked in a long time. I'm not doing this with Verizon anymore, but this is what I'm doing now. And it looks like y'all need a new website. And, you know, 6 months later, you know, it wasn't like, all right, bam, we're good. But 6 months later, we landed that project and we still work with them today. And that's been a relationship that we've had for over 5 years. So, you know, I think that a lot of what Lindy was saying is absolutely right on, because we wouldn't have gotten that had we not gotten the contract work to start. But I think like the really first big project that we got that we were like, man, we can do all of this stuff. And again, another thing that Lindy mentioned is like, you know, having the ability to be proud to show the work that we've created, and for us to be like, you know, we've not only built this website, but we designed everything from end to end. We've done a video shoot and a photo shoot with this client. Like, you know, we can show what our process can create if we're able to have our hands on all the pieces that we feel confident in doing. And then the ones that we, you know, Lindy or I or our core team don't necessarily specialize in, we have, and, you know, really it's like in the next layer of our bubble gets into, you know, other facets of design or other areas of expertise that we can tap into when needed. So we've kind of just built this really team of, and a large in part is because of we've taken advantage of being in Savannah and living here. So, you know, a lot of what I'm kind of going to start to ramble a little bit, but I think this is valuable to say, is that, and it does relate to talent. So a lot of what we understand about Savannah is so much talent comes here and then leaves. And we've developed really good relationships with people who are incredible artists, really great developers, really smart in technology. Like when you just have different areas of expertise, and we've nurtured those relationships. And whenever something comes along, if, like she said, if it's something that's really not close or not really in our wheelhouse, we know a really great person to pass them off to, and vice versa. And then, you know, the things that we are able to, the projects we're able to take on that have the capacity to support a budget that can allow us to have our hands on everything. You know, we're really, really proud of the work that we're able to create in those types of situations.
So I want to say congrats and awesome, because, you know, word of mouth is the most powerful tool out there for customer sales. And the fact that you have built a process, a company, a team, the quality of work, and obviously the communication around the work back to the client is what drives that. And that's all the two of you, right? And so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Right? I mean, that's
Oh, I will say, when Jason was talking, I was thinking about it, and I do feel like the people we still work with, most of the people in our network, the large majority of them have come through Savannah in some way, shape, or form. I feel like the strongest pieces of our network are people who we either met here, you know, Jason went to Armstrong, me at SCAD, working here, people, you know, even people I've worked with here have come back and brought us work, and we've been able to work with them. So really, you know, kind of reflecting on that, it is pretty incredible to think about how strong that network and community can be here in this region. And like Jason said, there's just so much talent. And that's one reason why, you know, years ago when we were kind of at a fork in the road, either we move so Jason can go up the ladder of this company, we said, no, we want to stay here. Like, this is where we want to build roots, and we don't want our jobs to dictate where we have to go. And so it was kind of like putting a line in the sand that we wanted to figure out how to stay here and still how to thrive with the work that we're doing. And I think one of the most wonderful kind of surprises has been the talent and people that we've been able to work with again or for a first time. And like I said, most of them have either gone through school here, have worked here, and are somehow kind of connected to our Savannah network. So that's also just a wonderful thing about this area.
Hashtag Choose Savannah.
Exactly.
Let's come back and edit this, or if we do another round of shooting, you'll get a phone call.
Yes, that's fine.
To get that video. Going to change it up a little bit. I like to always ask every entrepreneur I talk to give a definition of what success means to them, because I believe success is very much an internal thing. Like, what makes one person feel successful is exactly the opposite of what makes somebody else feel successful. And so for both of you and for the business, what is success?
I think this is something that really has driven a lot of our decisions, probably going back a year or two before East Taylor started. And like I said, one of those kind of pillars of success for us was our jobs not dictating where we lived. And so a success for us is the fact that we still happily live in Savannah, and that is our freedom and our decision. So that absolutely kind of location, that's a measure of success for us. And I also think for me personally, it's work-wise, it's being able to empower those purposeful ideas and people who are, as cheesy as it sounds, trying to make the world a better place. And I think that's, a lot of the reason that we started East Taylor. And that's a lot of how we measure success for East Taylor is, the individuals and the businesses that we can empower and lift with the work that we do. Watching someone take an idea and 3 years later have a thriving business moving into a storefront in Savannah, like, absolutely blows my mind. And that 100% like success, more so than the number of clients we have, our followers, the money that we're bringing in. I think the impact that we can make to make the world a better place and Savannah a better place, that's a huge measure of success. And I'll let you fill in anything else.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that. I think, for me, like everything that Lindy said about the client side, helping people realize their dreams and like getting client feedback from people where they're like, oh my gosh, like I feel like my vision is coming to life. Stuff like that is a measure of success for me. I think just because we become so invested in our client success too, because we do try to be selective about the people that we work with. I think for me, it's a couple of things, like being able to, being able to choose the work that we get to bring in. It wasn't always that way. So I think that's a big thing that we've grown to be able to do is, not only not necessarily understand if a client's right for us or not, but have the power and the confidence to say no to that is a really big measure of success for me. And I think also too, something that we started doing this year is giving back to nonprofits. So our team is committed to doing at least a couple of projects a year pro bono for nonprofit organizations that have, an idea, or if they need something, like if they just need help on something. So, I think, doing stuff like that, and just, like Lindy said, continuing to find ways to enrich the communities that we're a part of and we live in. It just, like, I think that's, and knowing that we're doing that on our own terms and in a way that feels good for us too, I think is really powerful.
Awesome. Love that. I do have to ask, we are in the middle of a pandemic. We are in this really weird world.
Yeah.
How has COVID-19 and this crazy world impacted your business?
It's been a wild ride, that's for sure. It was probably the beginning of March that we first started to feel the impact starting.
So it's pretty early.
Yeah, and some clients were impacted more than others. For example, we were less than a week away from putting on a music festival in Chattanooga with a client that we had to cancel. So t-shirts, posters, everything, cups,
Basically
printed,
everything.
like we were ready to get in the car and go to Chattanooga. And that came to a screeching halt. So, you know, seeing clients not be able to put something on like that or bring their idea to fruition because of COVID, that was hard and just obviously completely out of all of our control. There was another project that we had on the books with a nonprofit that they relied mostly on in-person events, and they had to drastically pivot and, you know, cut their budget. And so that was one where we weren't able to move forward with them right now. It was a, when we can, we will do this. We just can't do it right now anymore. So there were a couple of things like that, you know, we were really looking forward to, and it was a little hard when the reality set in, like it's just not going to happen. Other than that, I think a lot was jumping on board and supporting our clients however we could. So that was helping one client, you know, raising money for restaurant workers and, you know, that community in here and in Charleston. Another client in New York City, we helped him create a contactless ordering system that he's still using at his shop today, that there's an intercom, they have a little window, they push the product through. And so it was things like that. And he, that particular company started kind of a nonprofit wing of their company to give back and to support frontline workers. So it was kind of amazing to see how our clients adapted and changed to step up and support their community, but also keep their business going. So it was a lot of random tasks, a lot of hours for a few months, just getting everybody settled and in a good place. So I feel like that's probably in a nutshell. So it definitely hit us and hit our clients for sure.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if it's anybody says they weren't impacted by you know, COVID this year, I think that they're probably lying. But yeah, so I mean, we definitely felt the effects of, you know, we had, like Lindy said, I think really just a couple of projects that we were hoping to be able to do that didn't go. But I think one thing that has really benefited us and been something that's been super helpful to help weather some of those impacts and not necessarily feel them so significantly is the fact that I think anyway, the fact that we haven't put our business down as, or like, we don't work with a particular niche or a particular market. You know, we really pride ourselves on being creative and being able to tell the story of anybody who has an idea. So, you know, we work in a lot of different industries. So I think the fact that we weren't, you know, we're not, like, for example, there may be a company in Savannah, like, because the hospitality industry is so, you know, significant here, there may be companies here that solely work with the hospitality industry. So they would have been, I would believe, more significantly impacted just based on that. So I do think, I don't know if that's the case, but in general, I think that that's been something that's actually helped us, is not, you know, niching our business. And you just hear, I feel like you hear so much about doing it, and that's just a really successful way to do it. And I think in most cases, or in a lot of cases, it can be, but you know, in some cases it can also hurt you. So, you know, we never necessarily know what the market or the world's going to do.
So that's it. Sorry, my dog's been barking a little bit.
That's okay.
So yeah, and I kind of have an interesting view of the world, and I, especially Savannah, because I work with so many different companies, and I don't think we know what the end result is yet of how many businesses we're going to lose because of the unemployment growth,
Right.
the extra money to unemployment, the PPP, and the idle loans that people did get. You know, I don't know that we're going to know until next spring, what businesses really can't pull themselves out of this.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting time, but I also look specifically for businesses like yours or and Mark's and the tech, creative technology businesses. I just think that there's, you know, digital transformation has happened overnight and been forced on us and forced on industries that were slow to transform. So as we come out of this, there's even a wider a set of industries and companies that before would have been a hell no, we're not doing that, are now like, oh my God, now we have to do that. We have to figure that out, right? And so I just think there's such a plethora of opportunity for creative, smart people that can communicate well, like yourselves, as we come through this and out to the other side, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Agreed.
Mark had a question, so I'm going to go ahead and, Mark, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Yes, Jason, you shared your successful project with Verizon, and obviously they are you're continuing to support them. The question is for Lindy. You've worked at large enterprise businesses, including Target, and through your work at Razorfish. While these project sizes are larger and gathering the resources to support an enterprise client is substantial. Are you leveraging any of your enterprise experience to go after these clients?
In some ways, yes, especially in the beginning a few years ago, we did have the opportunity to work on a healthcare related enterprise system, and it absolutely was something that I would not have felt confident in or had the capabilities to take on, especially kind of a lead UX role that I did, and we were fully integrated with the team. Jason was a part of it. Without that experience, I do think it's been also interesting because I've had such a broad range that I've been able to kind of see what works and what doesn't and kind of pick different things from those different scenarios, to enhance, maybe it's a client who's just a solo entrepreneur in maybe like the social sector, but yet, something we're doing in our process is something I learned working with a client like Ford. So, it's kind of taking learnings from some of those bigger systems and bigger projects and figuring out how can we use that for our clients. And there's definitely a lot of learnings there.
Yes. Just a couple of observations. First is, I'm not sure if you're aware, two of the co-founders of Airbnb are industrial design graduates of the Rhode Island School of Design.
I did know that, actually.
Tell from their website their influence in industrial design that they brought to that. Also, when I was in Cincinnati years ago, I met one of the founding partners of IDEO, which is Silicon Valley juggernaut in terms of design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely, especially during my college years and early career, IDEO was the place to go when talking about design thinking, user-centered processes. And now I think it's really interesting. They've gone a lot into kind of education and social design. So that's definitely someone that, I'm always inspired by and still keeping an eye on for sure.
Yes. Regarding COVID, just a observation, and that is I saw an infomercial the other day for the Z Shields, which is a device that is the visor is brought up in front of your face, and then you can also drop it down so that you have free access. And I was thinking, 5 months ago, we would have never had any sort of demand for this product. And
it's true. And it's amazing how fast they get to market these days.
That just sounds to me like that's something that Tom Petty you could have utilized way back in the day. It's like his little harmonica thing.
Yes.
You throw his head back, gets the harmonica.
Yeah.
That's just somebody repurposing an idea. That's all that is.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap it up with my last question that I always like to end with. And that is, we have a lot of people that are aspiring entrepreneurs and new entrepreneurs that are just getting started. And if you had to give one piece of advice to them on their journey, what would that be?
I would say it comes back to your purpose. Know why you're doing what you're doing, whether it's, working on your own, starting a business, creating an idea or a product. To me, I feel like the ones that are purpose driven, that are solutions to help other people to solve true problems. I feel like when that person has a strong why behind what they're doing, they can get through the roller coasters of the process. They can put in the hours, they have the grit, and they're in it for the long haul. So I feel like I would say always know your purpose and kind of use that as your guiding light to align you throughout the journey.
Yeah, I was actually going to say something very similar. And I was
Sorry.
like, well, it's actually, mine was more focused on like, it is important. And I was just going to build off what you were saying, that it's important to know why you're doing what you're doing, because without question, there's going to come a time when you're going to be challenged more than you ever thought you would ever be. And if you lose sight of the reason why you're doing it, it's less likely you're going to actually see it through. So I think, making sure that you know why you're doing is also going to help make sure that, you're gonna be able to see those times through, because it's, more of your passion. And
I also feel like we've noticed, even with clients, how the end product just kind of falls into place and, magically meets the needs and kind of fits the vision that the clients have. When all of those things are kind of aligned, it always seems to be a good combination to create some magic at the end.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Loved learning more about what's going on with East Taylor and your story. And we'll have to keep in touch and see how you guys grow from there.
Yeah. Absolutely.